Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of The Final Whistle. I'm your host, as always, Elliot Barr, and is joining me is the guy that is in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, is Mr. Darren Swansky. How are you doing today, Coach?
Good, Elliot. Nice to talk to you, man.
Nice to talk to you as well, Coach. Nice to talk to you as well. Real quick, listeners, before we get started, two quick things. Tomorrow's watch party is going to be at Triple Crossing, not at the stadium because of inclement weather. And then, secondly, if you want to support our show, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of the summer. You can do so by going to rivercity93.com, following us on YouTube and on Blue Sky and Instagram, all of the same username, RiverCity93. So, Coach, before we get into all the serious jargon and everything like that, let's start off with a really funny story that I think most of our listeners don't know about. When you guys went up to Westchester, which was a draw there, you guys had some issues getting to the stadium. Had to call some Ubers and whatnot. Can you walk us through this story? And did you have to use Uber yourself?
I'm going to give you a quick 3 game in a month synopsis. I mean, we went to Chattanooga and spent 19 and a half hours on buses because of traffic and problems, and you saw that swamp fest. So, I mean, we went there, and then when we flew to Spokane, we had delayed flights. You know, we were sprinting in the airport. I almost lost the Latin contingent at the very end. I almost had to stay with them in Colorado because we almost didn't make our flight. And then specifically to Westchester, we had a very interesting bus driver. And on the way up there, he actually took a right going south on 95 out of City Stadium. So we should have known right away that that was the deal. It wasn't our normal bus driver. So anyway, we get up to Westchester, and we got lost probably 3 times finding the hotel just to get there. And then on the game day, as we're leaving, he took a route through the neighborhood. I don't know if you've been in Yonkers, New York, but these neighborhoods were built way back in the old horse and carriage days, right? So they're not the biggest roadways. And we have this huge, Academy bus booking down to the neighborhood. And he takes a left to go up a hill and high centers it on kind of the curb and on the side. So our bus is literally stuck in the middle of the road in a neighborhood. And we tried to get it. We tried to move it. We were already 15 minutes late because he was late getting back because he was lost. So we started calling Ubers. Like we called 5 or 6 Ubers. We sent Casey, our athletic trainer, and the guys that all needed to get taped first. I sent Mika in the second one because I'm always, I believe leaders eat last. We get there last. We do everything.
Yeah.
But I had to get everything ready. So basically myself and 4 of the guys that weren't starting came in the last Uber, and I got there 15 minutes after the coaches meeting, and we're running out to warm up. So it's been a real interesting month, to be honest, of travel. But the guys have been really resilient. We were able to find a point there. So I was happy with that.
I mean, just saying all of that, man. Like, I'm pretty sure it's been a while since this. I'm pretty sure you've had a moment where you could just sit back and just joke about it. I'm pretty sure the guys were able to joke about it, going through all that craziness stuff from, almost getting left out airport in Colorado to Ubers and all this other stuff. Like, even though with the results not going the way you want to, do you find your team still being lighthearted and being able to find happiness in this kind of rough patch?
It's an interesting term, find happiness. I think they have resolve. I think the guys, I don't think we've changed our tune and our ability to compete. We've been in every game. We're creating chances like crazy. We are giving up some soft goals that we're working on, but I'm not worried about the group that way. There's a good culture in our group. There's a good group of guys. They don't take on the noise. Our coaching staff doesn't take on the noise. We're moving forward. Those types of things can bond teams. It's just really frustrating because I believe in controlling the controllables. And most of the trouble that we had was probably really controllable. It's just things out of our specific control. We just get frustrated with a lot of people we have to work with.
Yeah, understand. So going through these past results, just speed through, we'll talk in the general sense of all of them. Spokane, there was a 1-0 loss there. Westchester 2-2 draw there. In the Jägermeister, you had a 1-0 loss to North Carolina FC, and then the previous last results was a 2-1 loss to Texoma last home game. So, Coach, last week on the podcast, I went on a little bit of a rant. I think offensively, this team is up there with some of the best, right? Creating chances, finishing. Yeah, the hardest thing to do in soccer is probably score a goal, but the chances are there, and that's something that I tip my hat to. But I think the frustration from a lot of fans and maybe yourself as well is the sloppiness in midfield that then leads to the defense being open for gaps. What are your thoughts on that? Because that seems like something we saw happening in a few games where we gave up goals where we shouldn't have.
Yeah, nobody's more frustrated than I am as it relates to that. We do a great job of finding goals and opportunities. In Texoma, I thought we started the game very, very well. Kirkland had a couple of chances, buried one of them. We had other chances to score goals in the game, even to the final whistle. I mean, we had a couple of side footers. Our young guy Andrew Richmond missed a sitter that I know he's going to want back. But if you're leaking goals that you shouldn't, and we shouldn't, both goals against Texoma were preventable. And believe me, we're working incredibly hard at it. And we're either going to fix that on the training pitch or we're going to fix it with personnel because it's not good enough. And we know that. We're all frustrated. The guys are hearing me every day in training. We know we can score goals, but unless we can stop giving them up, then it becomes a frustrating year.
And giving up the goals point, can I ask you this? Like, is this just more of an issue of the midfield is just having sloppy turnovers that's then resulting in your defense trying to put out too many fires?
Yeah, listen. There are individual mistakes that are being made on the field that put us in tough positions, and our defending has not been good enough across the board. Our individual defending and group defending has not been good enough. When you score 4 goals, but still give up 2 at Tormenta to start the year, it's a win and it's great, but it's still not good enough, and we haven't corrected it yet. And I take responsibility for that. But until we put together a complete game where everybody plays the way that they can, they hit ability level, then we're not going to win these games. It's it's very frustrating to give up goals when you're creating goals right and left. Even if we're scoring the goals that we're creating, which we're not at the clip we should, you're still going to have to clean those up. So
Yeah.
it's a multitude of things. It's not that we're not working on them. Other people are going to get opportunities, and we will fix the problem. We will find a way to stop leaking these goals. It hasn't quite clicked for us yet.
Yeah. Another thing about this past month that's been a reverting trend, injuries. You finally were able to get Griffin Garnett and Clyde Chella back to health. We're seeing Adrian Bellhart come back to health and also Chandler Dwyer. How much or if any part did those injuries play in the results or how things played out the past month or so?
I think this stuff starts with just our general situation. We don't have the resources like teams in our league to go to Florida for preseason or whatever. And our preseason was spent at the Score facility, and thank goodness that those guys took care of us. We had to cancel trainings. We had to cancel 2-3 games. We weren't as fit as we needed to be to start the season, and it starts a chain, a cycle where you have a couple of injuries. Adrian wasn't quite healthy. Both Guy as a center back and Clyde got injured. Terzagi's been injured. Chandler Dwyer's been injured. This is all related to not being able to prepare them correctly. We're starting to get some guys on the mend, but now you have an issue with a guy like, say, Adrian as an example. Adrian didn't do preseason. He missed months. So Adrian's really in his preseason phase trying to get fully healthy when we need him right now. Clyde Chella's been out. He was out for a significant amount of time. He's still in a phase of gaining his fitness back and his sharpness. Guy Franca, same thing. So, we're scraping to do that, and not to have excuses, but it's a struggle for us a little bit when we don't have the opportunity to do what maybe some of the other teams are. But again, we can win games. These guys can do the business, and if it takes more guys to get the job done, then that's what we're going to have to do.
Yeah. Focusing on a player like Adrian Bellhart, because to me, I think he is probably one key part of your offense that hasn't been available to you yet, and we see what he could do and offer. For a player like him, you mentioned he's in this phase right now where he's kind of in preseason form, trying to get back to full season form. How do you handle his transition so that way he doesn't get re-injured again or whatever happened doesn't happen again? How do you kind of control that where he's not automatically just going out of the gate 100% and something happens again that keeps him out longer?
So one, we're real scientific in our approach. Mika Elevar is really good at it. We use every bit of science that we have access to try to make sure we don't re-injure guys, give them the correct amount of minutes and all of that. But there's an unwritten rule in sports where for every day that you're out with an injury, it takes 2 days to get back to where you were when you got injured. A guy like Terzaghi, who's out for almost a year and a half, to get him back fully healthy all the time is really, really difficult, especially at 32. With Adrian Bilhart, Adrian's a little bit younger, but, he really went out the last 2.5 months of last season, and he hasn't been fully healthy until now. So it's yeah, we're going to expect him to jump right in, but it's 20-minute bursts. Then it's 30-minute bursts, then it's 45 minutes. To ask him to jump in and try to play significant minutes and be a major player for us, it's just unfair to him. He's not quite ready for that. But I'll tell you what, he works his tail off every day. He's really excited. There's good moments. He's exciting to see when he gets out there. We want more minutes out of him.
Yeah. One of the few players that stepped up in his spots. I mean, you got mental from Josh Kirkland and Matt Boduk, but I want to focus on Matt Boduk. How impressed have you been with him? Because this is a player that was let go at the end of the 2022 season or 2023 season. I can't quite remember.
22.
But he 22. Okay. So you brought him back this year. He scored a goal in Westchester. Just for you, how impressed have you been with his overall development as a leader on and off the field?
Saying this with the absolute utmost respect, because I love Matt. He's one of my sons. If you take the soccer piece and you move it aside and you look at the man that he's become over the last couple of years, I'm so impressed. He is a huge contributor to our community and society because of the man that he's grown into. Doesn't mean that he was a bad person before. Good soccer player, good guy. He just had a little bit of growing up to do. And I tell you what, it's sometimes you got to say no in order to ultimately say yes. And Matt's proven that he's grown into the man that he can be. On the soccer side, he's as efficient and as lethal as he ever was when I coached him before. So I'm really happy that he's here. I'm hoping he's here for multiple years, and he's been a godsend for us.
Awesome. Another player that's been impressive. Two more players that have been impressive, and then we can move on from here. Pablo Hara. He played a very impressive game against North Carolina FC. He's a veteran keeper in USL League One, been around since the league formed in 2019 with South Georgia Tormenta. How is it a player like that who is getting limited minutes in the cups still be able to be so locked in? Now, the goal that happened against North Carolina, nothing he could do against that, but how do you keep a player like that locked in, and how is he handling the situation of having James Stead ahead of him in the league games?
Regardless of what people think, everybody has their opinions. We work very hard with a good vetting process to make sure that the people that are part of the Richmond Kickers Pro Men's Club are good character people. That isn't a tagline. It isn't something we just say. It's real. Pablo's a grown man. He's got a child. He cares. He comes in every day as a professional. When he's not playing, he's helping the guys that are playing. That's hard to find. We work really hard to find those people. When Akira moved on, we needed to find somebody for that role, and Pablo jumped right into it. His ability to fight his way back into contention in terms of who's starting on this team makes us better, because iron sharpens iron. Now that he and James Sneddon are battling day to day in that, you're going to see both of them. And, I commend him for that, because he's had a heck of a year. He had a child, he lost a starting job, and he's fought his way back into it. And the entire time he's been nothing but class. I mean, Pablo is a class man. We're all really proud of him.
Yeah. Now, I found myself in that North Carolina game rooting for him to keep that clean sheet, because I was doing the research for our previous podcast, and he hasn't kept a clean sheet. I found myself rooting for him to keep that clean sheet against North Carolina. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but he is a good pillar to have it there and a good learning place for James Sneddon. The other player that I think we should talk about is Mr. Andrew Richmond, young midfielder. Saw him in the U20 game. You can tell that a U20 game with just certain players stand out, like they're above that level. And even when he steps into the first team game, the game against North Carolina and then against Texoma, he seems to fit right in. What about him makes the transition from the U20 game to the men's game so natural for him?
Again, we have worked very hard and been bullish since 22 that we're going to play the young kids. It's unfortunate that we have coaches that used to play in our team that are working to push kids to MLS academies when we have the Richmond Kickers right here. I mean, none of the kids so far that have left here out of Richmond United to go to MLS academies have played for their first team. And we've had 5, 6, 7 guys. I mean, Andrew's the next guy in line right now. Nick Sarantakos is doing well also. But specific to your question about Andrew Richmond, he's got a good brain. He's quick. He's got a little nasty to him. He's got a silky left foot. He can play different positions, and he's caught up to the speed of play of the men's game. He's just got other pieces that, unfortunately, with the youth systems in this country, we're having to work really hard to try to fix things and add things when they become pros. So no different than Beckett or Griffin or any of these others. There's a lot of work to do to make sure that he can compete with pros. But he's already shown that he's earned minutes, and we're going to give him more of them.
Yeah. Something tactically that just popped in my head, and I meant to ask you earlier about this team is great in transition. Be able to create chances, very direct. For instance, I'm going to pull out the Spokane game, and maybe even the Texoma game, a game in which the kickers have more possession, more opportunities on the ball. For your players, how do you get them into the mindset of having to break down a lower block? It's not easy to do, but how do you get your players to switch it on? Like, hey, we're going to have more possession in this game because either a red card or because the team is going to sit deep, and we have to be more patient on the ball. How do you get your players who are so great at transition to have that switching mindset?
Well, first, I think the Spokane game and Texoma games were a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Spokane, we never got out of second gear, and that's my fault. We just never got going in that game, even a man up. And Spokane just was an anomaly game. So that one we try to throw over the shoulder. Texoma, we train it, Elliot. We work incredibly hard on being good at that. When you have guys like Darwin Espinal and Josh Kirkland that have the ability to pick up a ball and attack with one touch, Landon Johnson starting to get there. Matt Bolduc obviously can do it. Hayden Anderson can do it. And Adrian Billhart healthy. So, we built the team so that we would be exciting going forward. And we are. We got to get completely healthy. But we train it, man. And when teams drop off, whether they're down a man in a low block or, Texoma, where maybe we had more possession in the game, we just got to move the ball quicker. We got to be more efficient and cleaner on the ball. And to your point, we made some casual errors in the midfield that allowed them to counterattack on us, and we lost the game because of it. If we would have finished the things both in counterattacks and in the stuff we created out of possession, we would have won the game. But it still would have masked the fact that we got to clean that other part up.
Yeah. Yeah. You speaking about not masking it up and being truthful with it. I forgot what I was about to ask you. Oh, I remember what I was about to ask you. So we look past those games and we look at the next 5 games coming up as a whole, right before the kickers get almost a 2-week break before in the first couple of weeks of July. You have One Knox coming up tomorrow. Stewie Ritchie's going to miss that game before Richie kicker there. But what about One Knox, if you can kind of dive into it? Tactically, how do they set up and how are you preparing your team to deal with that challenge on? I haven't seen their field yet. I think they only play maybe 1 or 2 home games, but I believe it's a baseball field.
Yeah, it's real similar to Omaha. One of the things that's happening in our league is people are starting to match the crowds that Richmond put out. They're saying they've sold over 5,000 tickets for tomorrow's game. So, they're starting to do the right things in Knoxville. So from that perspective, it's great for our league. But Ian Fuller's a good coach. He's a smart coach. He's been around a long time. They're tactically set up. They defend incredibly well. They counter fast. They got big, strong, athletic players. Some that have been there, some that are new. But they spent money. They have a roster of veteran players, USL Championship level players. So they're very, very good on set pieces. They're big and powerful. So on that small postage stamp that we're going to be on tomorrow, we're going to have to figure out how to create chances. And we worked on it this week. We've played at Omaha many times, and the game will be the same. One end will be a baseball infield that you can't play on. The other end should be a nice grass field because it's an outfield. But until we get on it tomorrow, we're not going to know for sure. But we prepared similar to the way that we prepare when we play in places like Omaha. I mean, we know it's going to be a tough game. They only have 1 loss for a reason. That's a good team.
Yeah. Definitely a tough stretch coming here where you got One Knox, then next Saturday you got Spokane, Union Omaha midweek, where you got to fly to, and then you come back for the Jägermeister Cup. Speaking about the Jägermeister, only 2 games left in that competition with Lexington and then Charlotte at the end of July. How has been your approach to this competition? And if you have conversations with other coaches, how are they approaching it now? We're kind of at the midway point on it. of it?
I think for us in Richmond, it just set up poorly. If it was me, I would have the USL play League One teams play against each other first in the competition, and then play against championship teams. I mean, we opened with Louisville, who's the best team in the USL Championship. Then we had to play NCFC, who their coach just got Coach of the Month because they didn't lose this month in the USL Championship. And they're top of the table in the East, so it's no excuses, but the top Division II teams should beat us. I thought the NCFC game, if the refereeing wasn't so poor, we would have had a couple of penalties. Maybe we get something out of the game. But now we turn around and we play against the Lexington team. That game, the approach to the Lexington game will be different than it was the last two. Because if we would have won the game against North Carolina, we would still be in the competition. Now we're likely not. So we'll adjust based on what the Richmond Kickers Pro team needs going forward. The guys need minutes. Do we need our starting team to get in rhythm? It will all depend on the 3 games prior to that before we make a decision.
Yeah, understand. We did have one listener question come in, so I want to ask you this. They want to know about the substitution pattern. How do you go about making your decision with substitution? Is it something that's already pre-planned? Like you just mentioned, like guys need minutes, or this guy's starting the red line, we might have to sub him out 60, 50th minute. Or is it kind of just like a feel thing where you see the pair of the field, be like, something's not right. Let me try to change this up here and there. How do you work out substitutions?
If you want to look at a 10,000-foot view, you start first with injuries and time for players. If players are coming back and you know that they can only play 60 minutes and you're going to start them, then it is fairly pre-planned. You might have 1 or 2 substitutions set up, though, for that. Like maybe you move a guy and you have a guy on a back line, you're going to move into the midfield when you take a midfielder off and bring out a defender. It's also who's available to you. So that's the first part. The next part is usually the need of the game. Like, what does the game need? When guys aren't getting it done. Like, let's say, somebody's, Josh Kirkland, I thought had a very good game in the last game, but he probably could have scored another goal, and just it wasn't happening for him. So you bring out a young kid like Andrew Richmond, you move Chandler O'Dwyer up a line. Chandler's a proven goal scorer also. And you try to take some pressure off of guys like Kirkland because you're trying to get those goals from somebody else. Chandler and Darwin and Kirkland are all scoring goals on a clip that if we can clean up the defending, we're going to win games. So you want to rotate those guys and make sure that they all get opportunities. But Chandler's been injured for a little while, so he can't play 90 minutes at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Terzagi's been injured. He can't play 90 minutes, and we need to get him going. So there's a multitude of factors. We don't just do it to do it. We're doing it to win games. Andrew Richmond came into that end of that game to help us get back into it and win it. He had a side footer to tie the game up that I'm sure he's going to want back. But the fact that he got into that position and was able to have the look tells you everything about him.
Yeah. Outside of the One Knox game, you're playing against teams, Spokane and Union Omaha, that you've already came against this season. How do you, and I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but how do you view that second look at a team? Does anything change, like tactically, or how you're planning stuff? Or is it like, this is how we're going to go about it?
That's a big question. First, our 100% concentration is on Knoxville tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we know how they play. We know what they're about.
Yeah.
We have a game plan, and we're going to go execute. Going into games where we've played teams before, in general, we have a good idea. We know how Dom's Omaha team plays. He might change formation or personnel, but we know how they're going to play. Lee Vedman has played the same way all year. If he takes off Luis Gill, it's Neil Vinyals. If he takes off Nico Brett, it's Pelias up front. He's playing the same way. I think it would be really interesting if all of a sudden you saw them come in a 3-5-2 or something, that he hasn't done yet, because it doesn't make sense. What the team that he's built and the depth that he has on his team, he can continue to do what he's doing. So we know what we're going to see. But we also adjust based on what we see in games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a running joke with their podcast. I call them Real Spokane just because of the amount of money and depth that they got out there. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the U20. So you were there with the FC Cologne head coach, whose name is escaping right now. But what did it mean to have, for you to kind of start building that relationship with FC Cologne, have them there to watch a U20 game, who had a 6-1 win over Wake FC. I keep wanting to call them Wake Forest, and I know it's not that.
Well,
Every time I say the name, I just want to say Wake Forest.
Well, first of all, I would tell you that when I got to Richmond a few years ago, there was absolutely zero connection to any European club in any way, shape, or form. There was nothing to hand off to me. There was no player sales. It was zero, nothing, nada. So I was starting from scratch. So
Yeah.
Mika has fostered a relationship with Cologne that's been amazing with Jorge Arcia, who you're talking about. We also have relationships with other clubs that you're going to start to hear about. We've been fostering those over the last few years because we want to move players. We're very bullish about that. You know, I stood there with Owusu and Jorge and watched the entire U20s game because we want everyone to work together, and we want our relationship with European clubs to be one where we can bring players here, we can push players there, we can learn from them, we can be humble and try to learn and grow in the best ways that we can, because really it's a brand new world for the Richmond Kickers. You know, even after 30 years, we're having to start that process. So we're really, really happy that we have that opportunity. You know, we had a group of kids go over and play games this spring at FC Cologne. So you're going to see more of that stuff. But the reality is Mikel Ibarra has been absolutely amazing in that. Between the two of us, we're the ones driving all of that. There's really no other resources to get that done.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question because I just thought about this on the spot. But, you know, the Kickers are maybe outside of tournament to one of the few clubs in USL League One who's like, look, we don't have the deep pockets or the big time owner or anything like that. So we have to, one, get our resources in different ways and get our team resources in different ways. And one doing that is by having the youth come through and play. Do you have a situation where other League One teams are coming to you guys asking you a bit like, hey, how do you guys go about your youth development or fostering a relationship with these clubs or anything like that?
No. Here's what I would tell you. Everybody's talking about youth development. The league wants everybody to do the way we're doing it. I mean, I started 3 teenagers in the game against Texoma, you know, not because we're giving them charity minutes, they've earned it. You know, I guess Beckett House 20 now, so he's not a teenager, but he's a homegrown. You know, he, Griffin, and Stedden they've all been here for 2 years. We've trained the living junk out of them. They've been a part of it. You know, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're playing them. You know, I'm not saying that other teams aren't. You know, I know Omaha has some, Greenville has some. They're playing some players, but because of our situation in how we have to put a roster together, I mean, we had 11 teenagers on our team this year. There's nothing wrong with that, but with that, you're going to also accept the fact that they're going to make some mistakes, and there's going to be a learning curve and some growth that has to happen. The hope, Elliot, is that we're able to start selling players on to produce the amount of sustainable resources for our club to thrive for the next 30 years. You know, we're not naive. That's what has to happen across the world. The owners won't lose money for a long time. They'll want some return on that. With the Richmond Kickers are the longest running pro team in American soccer. So Rob's very fiscally responsible, and we're working really hard to make sure we help him with that. That takes time, man. You know, I know a lot of people aren't very happy with me all the time, but guess what? Andrew Richmond, Griffin Gurnett, you know, Beckett Howell, Landon Johnson, James Snedden, all of these kids, Jonathan Gomez, who's in with us, and then all these young kids, they're going to get there. I promise. They're good enough. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I got 2 more questions, but I'll answer this one first. Part of 2. Because you mentioned it. With that many teenagers on the team, how do you juggle that line, or how do you straddle that line of being the coach, being the manager, but then also like you might also have to play dad because, like you said, like they are teenagers. Like how do you straddle that?
I'll answer it 2 ways. One,
Yeah.
it is so imperative that you get veteran players right. Dakota Barnathan, amazing. Okay. Seufert and Darwin, the ads, amazing. Simon Fitch, amazing. These are mentors for these young guys, and they see them play. Matt Bolduc, the man that he is now, he is amazing in the way that he helps those guys. So we're all in this together. We have a lot of good veteran players. We can start a team of all veteran guys. We just don't have the depth of a Spokane and sub-commensurate guys on. We're going to have to sub on younger guys. Doesn't mean we don't win games. If I told you how many times I had to talk to high school administrations, or that I got to watch my watch at training every day to go, Andrew in Grafton, it's 11:29. You got to leave at 11:30 because you got to get to class, or that that 4 of our kids missed significant training this month because they had IB testing in their high schools. I mean, they literally couldn't train for a week because they were testing for a high-level college to get college credit. I don't think most pro coaches in my league are dealing with the stuff that I deal with on that level. Last year I remember Griffin, we were talking about him, and it was like, gosh, do I skip training because I have to get ready for prom? And it's like, we got him out of training early so he could go get his tux and do these things. In the end, we work with it. And the beauty of it is most of these guys are from Richmond because we're really committed to these local kids. Regardless of kids bouncing out of here to go try it in MLS, good luck for them. We want kids from Richmond to stay here, live in their homes, and play on the pro team. So with that, Mika, myself, Connor Capoletti has been amazing. Evan Munn, they're all dads. They're all helping these guys along in life. Everything from girlfriends issues to homework to what it's like to travel on a bus for 9.5 hours when you're Brendan Dobziniak and you got to come back and go take an APIB test the next morning. I mean, I don't think that a lot of pro coaches are dealing with that, but this is the landscape that I'm dealt. So these are the cards that I play.
I had to proctor a test for an IB test once, and seeing them kids in there, I'll let y'all have that one, man. I couldn't do that. Not again. Man, Coach. The last question I wanted to ask you was, I'm pretty sure you've been following the news. Is a transfer that does impact this club. Matt Turner, who is the U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, is about 85% over the line of making his move to Lyon. And I did get confirmation on this. So FIFA solidarity payments, when that money does come to the kickers, how would that impact you guys in any way with that money?
I'm not going to overshare, but I'll give you the Cliff Note version.
Perfect.
when I got here, I initiated the FIFA claim for Matt Turner when he transferred from New England to Arsenal, and we got monies for that. We also initiated one when he transferred to Nottingham, also when he transferred to Crystal Palace. And if the Leon thing happens, we will also do that. And each time we've been rewarded in that. So the question about what we do with it, I'm not in charge of that. I get a player budget that I work with. So those monies go into a fund that our owner and our COO use to work to help keep our club sustainable. We're not in a position right now where we're selling players right and left where it equates to buying more players. We're just not there yet, but that's the plan. And I'm going to tell you guys again, I'm going to say it over and over. It is very, very difficult to do what we're trying to do. That's why nobody does it. But that's why 190 plus teams have folded in the United States because they haven't figured it out. In order for American minor league sports teams, soccer teams, in order for them to survive and be sustainable for the next 30 years, 100 years, you have to get into player sales. You have to match what they do around the world. We're 2 years into it here. It took me 5 years before a kid transferred out of Seattle when I was there, when DeAndre Yedlin went to Tottenham. That was it with an MLS club with all those resources. We have no resources for it here. We're lucky we have an under-20 team, but we're not like an MLS. MLS academies spend millions of dollars a year to develop these kids. We're doing it with grit in our teeth, giving them. They're getting I promise you, they're getting the level of coaching that they need, and they're put in an environment that even MLS teams can't. You have a kid like Nick Simmons who went to the University of Virginia and is doing great there. We love him. It's a great homegrown kid. Gabe Cox at Furman, Eli Mumford at Charlotte. These kids had the opportunity to train every day with grown professional soccer players, grown men. You can't get that anywhere else. That's the beauty of the Richmond Kickers. That's the beauty of the USL. We have the ability to throw a 16 and 17-year-old into training every day and into a meaningful competition tomorrow at Knoxville. Not everybody's doing that, but in the end, you're going to have to, because those players are going to have to develop. We're going to have to sell them on in order for these teams to be sustainable.
Awesome. I love ending on that, Coach. I know you guys probably just got there and whatnot, so I won't hold you too long. I appreciate you for taking your time to do these once a month with me. Any last things before we wrap up, Coach?
I would just say that the group of players that are here are really committed to the cause. We know when we don't win a game or two, and we haven't won in a little bit, but we're a team. Rob Ukrop's thing is, he says we're a community team that punches above their weight. We're going to stay in the fight. We stayed in the fight last year and made a run at the end and didn't quite get what we wanted, but we're going to stay in the fight and we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And as these kids get older and we're able to sign more veteran players, this club's going to win things. So stay with us. We don't mind the shade. We don't mind the criticism. You can throw it at us. I would prefer that people stayed away from my wife and threw it all at me. I'd appreciate that. But you know what? This is a public position. So if you think you know better, feel free. But I'm just telling you, no matter what you say or do, this group of guys is super, super committed to this project, and they're all awesome guys. So we look forward to Knoxville tomorrow and the rest of the season.
And we look forward to cheering you on, Coach. As always, listeners, we just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day for listening to our show. With that being said, Coach, I'll let you go in and go. Listeners, be easy and be safe. And as always, do something nice for yourself and someone else. All right.